Broadcasting live from the spectator seating on the plain of Kylum, this is Tap Tap Concede. Hey everybody, welcome to Tap Tap Concede. My name is Graham, and joining me is Nelson.
Hi there.
Cameron.
Hello.
And Ben.
Yo!
We're talking about Commander Legends previews. We are recording this the Saturday, we're recording this on Halloween. We're recording this the Saturday before the Commander Legends PPR, before the full set is spoiled. So we're going to be talking about some of the cards that have been officially spoiled at this point, and a little bit about the draft. Because at the time of recording, we recorded our draft for the PPR yesterday. And obviously we won't be talking about any cards that we might have seen that aren't officially spoiled at this point, but we can talk a little bit about doing the actual Commander Legends draft, because it was very different. Before we get into that, a reminder, of course, that Tap Tap Concede is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Do check out cardkingdom.com/LRR for all of your card-based needs. They'll ship singles anywhere in the world and sealed product anywhere in the US. And tell them, loading ready run sent me button, please, and they'll give you a little 1-inch button, which currently says mill is canon, but they are running low. I've got to get some new designs over to Kevin. And of course, this show and everything we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. So yeah, the other day we got to do a draft of Commander Legends. Obviously, we did everything safely and by guidelines, and you'll see more of that at the PPR, so don't worry about that. But this was different. So it's 3 packs of 20 cards. So the packs were thick. It's only 5 extra cards, but it was like this pack is engorged with value. And you take 2 cards for every pick. And then at the end of it, you'll end up with 60 cards, and you've got to make a 60 card deck. The reminder slip that comes with the box says that there's about 25 lands on average in a 60 card deck. So you want, I guess, about 35 spells, unless my math is way off.
I guess it depends on your curve in it. But yeah, around that or so.
For a commander deck, starting at 25, 26 lands is probably good. You could go up if you wanted.
Yeah, it depends on what kind of like archetype you're playing. Like I ended up with like 5 CMC and up tribal, so I'll probably be higher in the land count, but maybe somebody who's doing something like lower to the ground could probably get away with 20, because like 23 to 22 is a standard deck land count typically. Maybe even 21 if you're playing aggro.
It's interesting because, yeah, the thing definitely says like 25 is an average spot to land. So I guess they are sort of banking on, look, this game's going to go long. You're going to need lands.
Well, the set includes a bunch of 6+ drops that are quite good, right? So a lot of decks, I think, will be aiming to hit their first 6 land drops. And if you want to hit your first 6 land drops without much help, I recommend playing at least 25 lands.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, how was the experience for you 3 of actually doing the draft? Because I mean, obviously we're in a position where there was a bunch of cards that had not been spoiled, so we were doing a lot of reading, but just figuring out the two picks. Let me throw to Cameron.
Yeah, thank you. It was, I mean, how else do you say it? It's a bit strange. We've seen formats like this, like the last time we drafted, we were taking 2 out of the pack. Right?
Yes, yeah, and Double Masters.
Double Masters, we took 2 picks out of pack 1, but then after you passed your pack, we just took 1 each after that.
Oh, really?
So every time you opened a pack, that's what we did last time, right? I believe Double Masters was take 2. No? Was it take 2 out of every pack?
It was take 2 the first pick out of each pack.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But this is every pick is 2 cards, meaning that in a pack of 20 cards, you're only making 10 decisions.
Right. And we've also seen something kind of similar in Battle Bond.
Yeah. It's like drafting Battle Bond, but by yourself, yeah.
But it let you plant a flag early, which I feel is important. You could signal quite hard, and it helped you put together, like, your important playables early on. Because it's real easy to, like, wind up with a stat you can't play in this format. I felt deeply concerned for a while I was not going to have a playable deck, or I was going to wind up with the Piper.
Oh, right. I guess we should mention also the Prismatic Piper. If you're unaware of this, there's this card called Prismatic Piper. It's a colorless legendary shapeshifter that is a common, and it'll just be in the common slot. They said it's in a 1 in about every 6 packs. It's a 3/3 for 5, and you can make it your commander. It also has partners, so you can make it and something else your commander, or you could just make 2 of them your commander in different colors. And before the game, you choose a color, and Prismatic Piper is that color. And you can freely add that to your pool. Like, you don't have to draft it. It's like adding basic land. After the draft, you can be like, yo, is there a Prismatic Piper kicking around the table? Cool. That's my commander, because I never ended up with it. Ben, how'd it go for you?
It ended up being a last pick, I think, that was like passed over to me, the Piper. I was like a little bit worried in the beginning because I was just like, oh, I'm just like picking these cards that are really good in this color pairing that I want to do. How likely is it that I'm actually going to end up getting commanders in this color? And it turned out to be very likely, because I think I ended up with like 7 or 8 legendaries that had partner, or there was one that I got that was actually just dual colored in mine. So it's you really don't have to worry too bad, I think, about getting a legendary in your color pairing, unless you're like fighting with like 2 or 3 other people at the table. I think like it felt pretty safe in that way. From a draft perspective, it was super interesting. It like, is it just me, or did it feel like super removal light?
I would say that feels accurate.
Yeah, like I think the only like for sure piece of removal that I had was, oh god, it's the red, so is it Soulfire? The red spell that lets one of your creatures deal damage equal to its power to another creature for 3.
Soul's Fire, yeah.
I think that's like the only actual piece of removal or so that I ended up getting like drafted. And what's interesting too is like, coming at it from a commander perspective, spells like that, not great. You know, it's like there's that interesting thing where you look at cards that go in commander, you know, like Lightning Bolt is a great card. In commander, not so great. Like, it's, unless like you're doing something kind of around that sort of strategy, it's not a great card. But then like Primeval Titan, kind of a bulk rare in like constructed formats. In commander, so good it got banned, you know? So there's like this weird sort of like disconnect, and so, a lot of the removal that was in here was really, really weird to me in that kind of way. But I guess that's sort of what it's supposed to feel like it's not supposed to be like primo removal all the time kind of a thing. There, like, because there are like some decent ones, like I guess there's like Cage of Hands and stuff like that, but like single target removal has always been sort of like a weird sort of a thing in commander. So seeing it like being sort of one of those sort of picks it was wild to me. And I guess like the other thing that I really ended up noticing while it was going around was, because everybody was able to take 2 picks, there was kind of, I think I just heard everybody over like talking about it, was like how pack 1 felt really good, and like you were grabbing some things, and then there seemed to be like a unanimous thing that like pack 2 felt really off, because like you were kind of going like so deep, or at least for me, like I was going so deep into sort of one archetype, and then coming back the other way, if somebody on that side was feeling like sort of the same way and double picking out of that same sort of archetype, it just sort of like disappeared really quick. I don't know, maybe that was just sort of a weird happenstance. But pack 3 came around and it was great, and that sort of seemed to pull a lot of people's decks together as well. So, I
mean, without wanting to spoil too much of the draft video at the PPR, I was also getting, as it turns out, hard cut in pack 2.
Yeah, like pack 2 felt really weird, and it seemed like a lot of people had that sort of same vibe. So I don't know, it was such a unique environment. That being said, I came out of it feeling pretty powerful. So maybe that's a result of this double drafting style format.
Yeah, I think our pod had like 8 of us drafted together, and there were 3 people in a row who were like kind of Esper colors, and on the other side of the table there were 3 people in a row who were all green. So it's like that second pack just felt so much weirder than the first and third pack, where like you were kind of used to whatever amount of these cards everyone were fighting over, you know, and your place in that hierarchy, and then it was backwards. And like this can happen in any other format too, but yeah, there's something about the Commander Legends draft, because you're trying to make sure you have enough playables and a commander, and like you're just under more pressure, I think, to kind of like get your deck together. And in pack 1, it feels like still anything's open. You still got 40 picks ahead of you by the end of pack 1, but then pretty quickly in pack 2 you're like, oh, do I have to take this commander sphere? Like, you know, how much do I really want to be in this third color? I have a tricolor, you know, legend for it maybe, but maybe I don't want to bother, and I'm going to end up with better commanders later, and I just don't take this third color of card. It's more of a balancing act of trying to make sure that your spells are playable and that you've got enough spells for your deck.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, in that vein, right? Like when you're drafting like any other format, it gets to pack 3 or so, right? And you open up this like bomb rare that's maybe like a gold card, and it's got one of the colors that you're in, and then maybe it's just like one, like maybe you're in Gruul, right? And you open up some bomb Rakdos rare. For me, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take this card. It's definitely splashable. In this format, you can't really do that unless it's like a legendary that has a partner, right? And then you could partner it up with something else in your deck and maybe get that like, that 3-color shard or wedge. But if it doesn't, you kind of just have to go, well, there's no, like, I literally, it is not legal for me to take and play this card. So that's what really threw me, I think, during the drafting portion.
Yeah, having to keep in mind color identity, but not the singleton nature. That was weird, right? It's like, no, I can't take this because it's not in my colors, but I can take this even though I already have one.
Yeah, I felt it like it was a kind of confusing extra balancing act. I had a good time. I read a lot of cards as well. But yeah, I definitely struggled several times with which way is my deck going? Is it worth, taking this legendary creature so that I have the option of building that deck later? We mentioned you only make like 30 picks total because you take 2 cards at once. And I really like that. We said it already, but looking back, it's like, yeah, you really want to know if you bother taking this particular commander that you have at least 1 card that goes with it, so down that decision tree, or you really want to know, like, if I'm going to take this, piece of a strategy like this A plus B thing, that I can take the other thing from this pack that goes with it as well. More so than a normal draft. It just felt it felt more comfortable and easier to get through the draft taking 2 cards at once. So I really like that they did that.
And presumably, if you're not reading a bunch of cards for the first time and also filming the draft, your draft should theoretically go a little quicker than a normal draft.
Yeah, I think like once people sort of got a feel for what was going on, like you were definitely like passing things along pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think the first pack we're reading a lot. Second pack we're all just trying to figure out what to do. Like, it's difficult strategy time. And then the third pack is pretty quick.
Yeah, I would say if I drafted this again, I'm just sort of like looking down at least what's been spoiled, but like more so than anything, like in the first couple in the first maybe pack, or maybe pack and a half, any dual colored commander that has partner might actually just be like tier 1 pick always.
Just leave yourself wide open for colors.
Yeah, just so you can kind of go in that route, right? And even if you don't end up using one of those like 3 colors maybe that you end up having access to, at least it like leaves you open to do those kinds of things.
I'm checking out the previews, and I think all the 2-color partners are just reprints of the original partner commanders, and they're at Mythic. So it's like, it's so hard to do that. Basically, the way the set shakes down is there are some regular, rare, and Mythic, I think 3-color legends. So you can get one of those, and that's sweet. Or there's a whole bunch of uncommon partners that are 1 color. And so you can probably plan on getting 2 of those. They might not be the ones that you want for the deck that you're trying to play. For example, like, my deck ended up blue-red, and I have partners. One of my partner commanders is like on theme and the other one isn't, but at least I have 2 commanders and I can play my cards. But finding a way into a 3-color deck is pretty hard.
And what's interesting too is like more so I felt this going through this probably out of necessity, but in any other format I've ever drafted, fixing was easy. Like to pick up. There was so much, you can't always like grab it. I think Ben Wheeler ended up grabbing one of the new rare enemy colored duel, the Training Center, I think it was, and he's like, I'm not even in blue-red, right? And it's like in another format, you're like, sick, I have this dope dual land that'll help me fix in it. But he's like, I actually can't play Training Center because I don't have an Izzet commander. Like, because of color identity, you actually can't even run that land in the deck. So it's weird. It's weird, but I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, I'd really recommend, if you're going to draft this, try to draft with friends, or like, well, obviously we're not drafting in stores right now, basically anywhere, unless you're in some sweet region that doesn't have any cases. But yeah, like if and when you end up drafting this, I recommend having the cards not just be going to whoever's drafting them, because of this dual land and other, some kind of expensive mana fixers. And it's like, the way that the draft format should feel, I think, is that people are kind of fighting over legendaries, and you maybe like take a few cards for one deck because they're good cards and you want to win. And then like you have a few different half decks built by the end of pack 1 maybe, and then you can kind of settle in. Because I agree, as Ben's just saying, like getting the actual color fixing, like the Terramorphic Expanses and their Armillary Spheres and the rare duels, is actually easier than making sure you have like, the Boros Dwarf for your Champion of Flame deck.
Mhm.
Well, let's then encourage everyone to tune in to the PPR on November 6th at 11 a.m. and actually see that draft and the games that follow, and also some sealed play, even though the format is definitely designed for draft, but hey, we're here to mix it up. And let's start talking about some of the actual cards that we're excited to see, because there's many yet to spoil, but boy, they have made some things with high power and some things with deep cuts.
There was a card spoiled today that, from a flavor perspective, from a mechanics perspective, just everything about it makes me so happy. And it's a card called, have you seen Hans Eriksen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 2 red and a green for a 1/4 for a legendary creature, human scout. Whenever Hans Eriksen attacks, you reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you put it onto the battlefield tapped, attacking defending player or a planeswalker they control. Otherwise, put that card into your hand. When you put a creature card onto the battlefield this way, it fights Hans Eriksen. So just from alone, mechanically, this card is hilarious.
So
Yeah.
Ice Age, yeah.
Yeah. And from a lore perspective, from those who aren't familiar, this is Ak Hans.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, from the Lurgoyf flavor text, and the one who was hanging out with Safi Eriksdotter.
Which is his daughter.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
sister?
Or maybe they're brother and sister.
I always
don't-
forget how the Norse
Yeah.
secondary names
Right.
work.
Sister. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, his sister. Yeah.
I guess Eric is their father.
Yeah, presumably Eric is their dad, yeah.
Yeah.
His flavor text is nothing could ruin such a fine day, Safi.
Yeah, and so Safi Eriksdotter got the flavor text of, in a blink of an eye, she strode from deep snow to dusty waste. From the crease of light behind her, a voice rang hollow. Safi, wait for me. And then Lurgoyf is, Ak, Hans, run! It's the Lurgoyf. Safi Eriksdotter, last words.
Oh no.
Yeah, so it just sort of it's very sad, just with the nothing could ruin this fine day, Safi, and then Safi gets eaten by a Lurgoyf.
Well, isn't the card of Safi Eriksdotter, doesn't she like vorp through a portal? Isn't that what that card is saying? Because it's like she's passing through like one of the time spiral anomalies. Because her flavor text is like she was in the snow and then suddenly she's in these barren wastes.
Right.
But maybe the Lurgoyf's still going to get her.
Maybe.
I mean, you can just imagine Hans as a child, always getting into things. You know, you turn your back on Hans for a moment, and he's just like all of a sudden covered in chocolate.
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, oh, Hans.
Hans, put the butcher knife down. Daddy's gonna carve the pumpkins this year, okay?
Yeah.
I just love the art of he's like bathed in sunlight and his eyes are closed and he's smelling these lovely flowers, and then in shadow in the background Safi is just pointing off shot, losing her mind.
Yeah.
This is real photos taken moments before disaster.
Yeah.
That is the Eriksen family trope, isn't it? Real photos taken moments before disaster.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, just like as a commander, I would almost just this could actually be like Bear Tribal alternative if you wanted to also have access to red instead of just Queen Ayula. If everything's a 2/2, they both punch each other, they nod heads, go, okay, that was cool, neither of us is dead, and you get free bears out of it. But I mean, there's probably a bunch of other ways you could go with the deck.
Yeah, I recommend stuffing a Maze of Ith into your Hans Eriksen deck.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
How tough can you make Hans, right? Where he's just like completely beaten up, but still rummaging through things, poking at things.
Are one of the enchantments that's like makes the creature deal no damage and take no damage in red or green? I know there's one in blue.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this actually with off of what Cam just said, you could probably take this in like in an assault formation kind of deck where everything's based on toughness. Because then the fighting doesn't really matter because they've got, neither of them have like any power, and then you just start beating people with Hans Eriksen butts.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, he seems really cool.
I also want to talk about this mythic Chimera Hydra called Apex Devastator.
Yeah.
So it's a 10/10 for 8 green. So a 10/10 for 10 with 4 abilities: Cascade, 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 Cascade.
Malkovich.
The first thing I thought of was like a Chappelle Show. I don't know if anyone still gets Chappelle Show references that aren't Rick James related, but the one of just like, what are the 4 greatest Magic the Gathering keywords? Cascade, 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 Cascade. Because I spit hot fire. It looks the extended art version of it doesn't even have the reminder text, so it just says Cascade 4 times in the rules box, and it looks really funny.
It's super weird looking. There's the other part of me that's like, there's 4 cascades, but in the art there's 5 heads, and that, I don't know. I'm just like,
yeah. Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of this adds up.
R&D was like, 5. That's extreme.
House rule: you have to pay 12, but you can cascade a 5th time.
I'd be all right with that.
It's still only a 10/10, but if you pay an extra commander tax, you get an extra cascade.
You heard it here first, folks. Cascade worth 2 mana.
I mean, seems like it.
Yeah, no.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know, 10/10 for 2 green. They've done it already. Like, isn't that big dinosaur legendary 2 green mana for a 10/10 or something? Or a 12/12 trample?
Galta?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Anytime that you're facing down a Galta, your opponent only paid 2 green for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see. I know Cascade is one of those mechanics that's kind of up there in terms of power level, like Storm. There's not that many cards printed with it, but the fact that there's more are happening gets me kind of excited because I think it's such a fun mechanic. I love like the RNG factor adding into the gameplay of the deck and having more than just like Maelstrom Wanderer and some of the OK Cascade cards and stuff that people would use for combos. Just having a big dummy that does it a bunch of times seems pretty sweet.
I really like where they went with the Cascade cards in this set, at least the ones I've seen so far. It doesn't seem like any of them are a Bloodbraid Elf.
Mm-hmm.
You know, none of them look like they're too powerful. They're all pretty expensive, but they look more fun. So hopefully that'll continue to be the case in the draft games.
Yeah, well, I mean, and Naverna, the Chaos Bloom, the Teamer legendary creature, the new one, has the ability that when you cascade, you can put a land card from the exiled cards onto the battlefield tapped, which is just kind of fun and unique and kind of reminds me of, is it Panglacial Worm that you can cast when you're like looking through your library?
While you're searching your library, you may cast Panglacial Worm, yes.
Yeah. Sort of goofy things like that sort of flip magic rules around or intricately kind of weave themselves in are really neat. There was a new card that was, I think, spoiled today as well, called Obeka, Brute Chronologist.
Oh yeah, I really like this one.
Yeah, this is a weirdo card.
So it's 1 and then Grixis, so blue, black, red for a 3/4, and just has the ability you can tap them and the player whose turn it is may end the turn.
With the flavor text, I'm bored with now.
Yeah. So when I looked at it, I was like, well, no one's going to ever want to end their turn. And then basically the other boot dropped and I went, oh, this should be your commander for alternate loss condition tribal.
Alternate loss condition?
Warrior's Oath commander, yeah.
Yeah, cards like Lich's Mastery and like all these ones that are like
Demonic Pact.
Yeah, Demonic Pact. Any of these ones that are like you would trigger a you lose the game thing onto the stack, then you just tap her and end the turn and you don't lose the game.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, and I mean, I think people were kind of doing this already with effects like Sundial the Infinite and whatnot. But there's a surprising amount of cards that are also just end the turn cards, like Time Stop and Glorious End, which is funny because Glorious End ends the turn, but then also makes you lose the game next turn. But yeah, I don't know. It's super. I really want to pick her up and just play all cards that make me lose.
I mean, it's nice to have this kind of effect on tap, right? I feel that those decks need to have this when they need to have it, right? So having it on your commander, probably important. You could probably make some cuts and put in some more interesting cards.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be some really neat builds with Sundial of the Infinite as your commander. I also think the fact that you can do it for other people could lead to some interesting politics effects where it's like, maybe like Spelljack or like Gather Specimens. Those are kind of like popular cards. That's somewhat popular at least. So, with Obeka, you can choose to like do someone a favor and be like, oh, okay, well, hey, I'll tap Obeka on your turn and you can choose to end the turn if you don't want this third player to steal your creature, right? Or like, hey, this combat suddenly got really bad for you. I'll let you end your turn now if you don't attack me until such and such is dead or whatever.
Yeah, or like if one of your opponents is about to like accidentally mill themselves out or was getting milled out or whatever, couldn't you just like with the do you have a priority at any point where you could end it before they go for the draw?
Yeah, for sure. You can tap it during someone else's upkeep before they've drawn a card.
Yeah.
And then unless somebody else like instant speed makes them draw or something, you know, in response to your Obeka, then you can like, just use your Obeka to keep someone alive with no library. That's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they have to do your bidding.
It's like, you stay in this game for as long as I say so.
Keep attacking them. Yeah. Well, I guess they can't do that, but
Yeah. Maybe you need them to stay in the game because they control an enchantment that's keeping you alive. I don't know.
Yeah, it's politics. And that's the beauty of Commander, isn't it?
certainly I like this card too, and wouldn't mind putting a deck together for them. It seems like it'd be fun to play.
So I love that they printed a new kobold in the manner of the original kobolds. So it's Rograk, son of Roga, who I'm reading in an article on the Wizards website that explains a bunch of these characters, that he is leading a rebellion against his tyrannical father.
Oh, okay. He's the good guy.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of division in the kobolds of Kirkeep at the moment, but all the original kobolds, there was 3 of them in, I don't know, Unlimited, like long time ago.
They're all from Legends.
Right. And they're all 0 mana creatures, and they're all 0/1s. So you need to like pump them in other ways or have cards that care about kobolds. So Rograk is a 0/1 for 0, but is red, legendary creature with first strike, menace, and trample, and partner. I love it. I don't know what you can do with that, but
There's actually a fun thing that you can do right in if you're drafting it, which is fun for me, which was you can take Rograk as your commander and partner it with
that horse,
with the new Jeska card.
Oh,
So now you're double. You're all in on red or the horse. The horse is a great idea too, but Jeska is 2 and a red for a 0 loyalty planeswalker. She's finally got a planeswalker card, and she enters the battlefield with a loyalty counter on it for each time you've cast a commander from the command zone this game. And then for 0 you can choose a creature until next turn. You deal combat damage. If it would deal combat damage to one of your opponents, it deals triple that damage to that player instead, or you can minus X her and deals X damage to each up to 3 targets. So with being 0, it's so easy to just cast him, a bunch of times, and then Jeska's loyalty gets more and more each time she will come in, like each time a commander's been played.
That's
I don't know.
sweet.
It's a fun little synergy there. I'm just not to divert from that, but just like it's super interesting that like the planeswalkers in this set, like planeswalkers are always a weird thing in Commander because they basically put a giant target on your head. So it's like, I don't even know if you first pick a planeswalker when you're drafting this, because I'm just like, this feels like people are going to hate me and want to attack me all the time.
you probably still take planeswalkers.
Yeah, like it's still good. It's just like it's sort of wild. You, instead of one person, you've got to worry about 3 other people.
I just want to briefly explain what we meant when we said the horse. So there's Keleth, Sunmane Familiar, which is a 1/1 legendary horse for 1 and a white. The lore here is that apparently Keleth, like known in some circles as the Kingmaker, will like choose a knight and like appear as a familiar. And then once the battle is over, Keleth vanishes. It's like just like a ghost spectral horse or whatever that will like appear in any random battle and be like, you may ride me to victory. But the ability of the card is it's a 1/1 with partner, and whenever a commander you control attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So I like the idea of Rograk and Keleth riding together.
Also, just like really great turn 1 into turn 2 plays from your command zone.
Yeah.
Do you think Keleth is from Theros, or do you think they're from like Alara? I can't get a clear bead from the art or the name.
Sunmane would be Theros, because there's the Sunmane Pegasus
Okay, cool.
in
All right.
Theros Beyond Death. I think there's a couple Sunmane cards that are
Yeah,
in Theros.
Keleth obviously has a very kind of epic hero feel, so Theros was the first one to come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Should we talk about this court cycle a little bit?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bunch of sweet new enchantments. I believe there's one for each color, so why don't we just go down the list here. The white one is called Court of Grace. 2 generic and 2 white, so 4 mana for an enchantment that says when this enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. I believe they all say that. And then they all have a beginning of the upkeep trigger. The white one is at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. If you're the monarch, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying instead. So pretty cool. It's like it rewards you for untapping as the monarch. So it's like kind of all monarch cards, as you know, if you play any of these conspiracy cards or anyone in your playgroups have played them, come with a little bit of a risk reward for them. Obviously, every turn you get to draw a card, but then these courts, the court enchantments kind of like up the stakes on the reward for being the monarch. The black one here, Court of Ambition, 2 generic and 2 black. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. If you're the monarch, instead, each opponent loses 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. So that one, bit riskier, I guess, paints pretty big target on your head if you're not going to win the game soon after you play that one. The green one, I think, was recently spoiled.
Yeah, Court of Bounty.
Thanks. Can you read that one? Yeah.
Yeah, 2 green. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. If you're the monarch, instead you may put a creature or land from your hand onto the battlefield. The blue one was one of our preview cards.
Yeah, you've already seen the blue one.
Yeah, Court of Cunning, 1 blue, ETB, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, any number of target players each mill 2. If you're the monarch, each of those players mills 10. So it's your upkeep, and you just go, you, mill 10. And the red one hasn't been spoiled yet.
Okay, sorry, yeah, I'm teasing you here. Don't get to find out what the red one does yet, but, probably you'll deal 3 damage to target creature, or if you're the monarch, you'll deal 6 damage to target creature or player, something like that. They all seem to kind of reward you more for untapping as the monarch, and so I think those ones, hopefully they're going to be fun to play with. I'm a little worried thinking about them now and going through them. It's kind of like, well, these are sort of win more. Like if you're behind, and you can't stay the monarch, you're just letting your opponents draw more cards instead of you. But if you are ahead and you're able to untap as the monarch, it just like accelerates to the end of the game. Although, you know what? Maybe win more cards are just kind of generally good in Commander. It's nice for the game. As James, our illustrious producer, would say, the game's got to end sometime.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like looking at them, Court of Bounty, the green one, even if you're not the monarch, just basically being able to put 2 lands in forever, unless that thing gets taken away, has always just been sort of good. Things like exploration and stuff have been Commander staples already. So it's like, a Sousa-like effect, I think, is always just good. Like, people in Commander like to just have a lot of mana. And then if you do get to just cheat in some big dummy, then cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully they're all going to feel like that. Like getting a flying token, whether it's large or small, getting a flying token every turn is good. The blue one, like, you probably can put it in a deck that gets a bunch of use out of your graveyard. You just mill yourself, and milling for 2 is kind of good. That's some fuel.
Yeah, Cam, I know that, like, as a fan of blue, I actually don't recall how you feel about mill specifically. What do you make of Court of Cunning?
It's mill is the thing that you have to be all in on, right? Like either you do mill exclusively or don't bother, right? Because otherwise it's not going to do anything, and it can quite easily land you in a lot of trouble, right? There are enough decks out there for whom milling them is drawing them cards, that you're riding the tiger, unless you pair it with something like Leyline of Annihilation, right? That just blows away people's graveyards.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a huge fan of mill in Commander, mainly because people also don't like it. Right? There's a fine line between doing things that win the game and doing things that antagonize the entire pod. And people don't like getting milled.
Or having to discard their hands, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's like that defeated value that the opponent has when they get milled, when they're just like, oh, well, there goes that one spell I was really excited to play, and now it's in my graveyard.
Yeah, there goes my answer for this. Okay, I guess I'm going to die in about 40 more turns. The one I'm really excited for is Court of Ambition, though. I like the cut of this card's jib.
It seems sweet.
Just losing 3 life every turn isn't that big a deal, and losing 6 life even in Commander, it's tolerable for a while. So maybe this one paints less of a target on your head, and if so, cool.
In Commander Legends Draft, mill is slightly more viable.
I was gonna say, I think Court of Cunning is actually kind of balmy in this specific limited format. But
okay.
yeah. Just because you've got less cards to end up going through.
Yeah, maybe it's kind of like, what was the one from Dark Ascension? the mill card that you didn't have flashback. It had the thing where you could play it and cast it twice effectively. Nelson, what am I thinking of?
Yeah, there's a whole cycle of them
Yes.
from Dark Ascension, and we just called it Mill Fireball because it's blue and X, right?
Is this the increasing cycle?
Yes, the
Yes.
increasing thing. Increasing confusion? Does that sound right?
Yes, increasing confusion. Yeah.
All right.
Player
yeah.
puts the top X cards of their library into their graveyard. If it was cast from the graveyard, you put twice that many cards into the graveyard instead with flashback.
Yeah, so there you go. Maybe it's the set's increasing confusion.
Yeah, so increasing confusion back in Dark Ascension Draft, just to reiterate, is like this card where the rest of your deck could be not mill at all, like the opposite of what you were saying previously, how you have to be all in with your deck plan, right? And you can just have one card that mills so well that you can just use that as an alternate win con, basically, even while the rest of your cards are like trying to deal damage or counter your opponent's spells.
Yeah, I mean, as you were kind of saying, like that's just it's so interesting. Like the do I play this? Like, will this card? What level of anger, will it incite in my opponents? Am I painting a target on my back with this card? And multiplayer formats are weird like that. And with that, like, I mean, we had mentioned it. We'd probably be remiss to not talk about the flower in the room. Hey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, because this was spoiled in a couple days ago at time of recording, because I was on stream at the time and people were like, they reprinted Lotus for Commander, and I'm like, what does that mean? So, Jeweled Lotus is a 0 mana artifact. You can tap and sack it to add 3 mana of any one color. You can spend this mana only to cast your commander. So, there was much frou-for-all on the Magic Twitter and the subreddits and, the various social spaces. And I think I come down on this, I mean, sort of two minds, which is I actually don't think this is nearly as problematic and busted as a bunch of people think it is, and I also wish it didn't exist.
I think honestly that is the best camp to exist in for
that's
this.
basically where I'm at too.
Because it's like it's undeniably powerful.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's talking about these scenarios where you basically cheat out your 5 mana commander on turn 1. But then there's just so many aspects to it. 1, well, good job. This is now an archenemy game. Like, and 2,
Yeah.
it's literally it's rule 0 of commander has always been like it's all about fun, and the communication levels and stuff like that. And so, I don't think that Jeweled Lotus being a thing is any more a thing than like whether or not your friend is playing OG dual lands and stuff, right? Like power level has just always been like a consistent conversation that people have. I could see this being really powerful in obviously like competitive EDH world, but I don't know. I don't think it's destroying Commander as we know it, as so many people seem to be alluding to.
Definitely don't think it's going to destroy Commander. I'm not sure what the scariest starts are with this card because it can only cast your commander, but say you're on like Lotus into Marilyn. Marilyn is the other one that we were excited about. But anyway, say you've got like some mana dork elf, like you've got like the Gilt Leaf Archdruid or something, and your deck is just trying to make lots of mana and then overrun with a Zuri. It's like, Zuri commander, but you had the Zuri in the 99. You get this out, and like on turn 1, you can make an extra mana elf if you got like the ultimate perf draw off of a forest and a soul ring and your lightning greaves and your Jeweled Lotus. It's just so unlikely that it should, although it might not feel like it for your friends or whatever, it should feel like it really evens out for like all the games where when your deck is all about making mana, you draw a Jeweled Lotus on any turn after turn 3. And it's kind of like not that big a deal, or it might be too late, or just helps you pay the commander tax the way that kind of Gavin was talking about. And they intended this card to feel.
Yeah, I don't think it, quote, ruins Commander from the perspective of casting a spell. Like, that's the thing. Like, I think my objection to this card has actually nothing to do with it being used for its intended purpose. My objection is that it's just another card that people feel like, well, I have to put this in every Commander deck that I build.
Yeah, I mean, it's the next Arcane Signet, it's the next Mana Crypt, it's the next, it's, must includes.
And must includes probably shouldn't be mythics in limited print run sets.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's kind of like, okay, Arcane Signet, whatever, it was pretty accessible. But Jeweled Lotus is not going to be.
I think the best combo I've seen that actually interests me is with Salvaging Station, it's a 6 mana artifact. You can tap it to return target non-creature artifact with CMC 1 or less from graveyard to play. Whenever creatures put in the graveyard from play, you may untap Salvaging Station. And there was just like cool combos that included using Maga, Traitor to Mortals from Kamigawa, where effectively like you like damnation while you have a salvation on the or a salvaging station on the board, and so you wipe the board, right? So you get like a bajillion salvaging station triggers, and you just keep bringing back the Lotus over and over with the salvaging station to generate a bajillion mana. And then Maga, Traitor of Mortals, is X black for a 0/0, and it comes in with X 1/1 counters on it. And when it comes into play, you dome somebody for the amount of counters. So you basically like commander fireball somebody off of a bunch of salvaging station Lotus triggers, which seemed really funny to me, but that's probably not even the best thing that you could do.
Honestly, the number of cards you had to describe and the amount of mana you had to put in for like legit mana you had to put in for this combo, I'm personally fine with it. I think that people should definitely right now, like anyone who believes this goes in every deck, proxy it, put it in every deck, play a bunch of games. I don't think this card actually does go in every deck. I think it should only go in decks where you stand to gain a really significant advantage from getting your commander out early. Like, I think it probably goes in decks where, like, you're planning to win with commander damage. Like, you know, it's not that great at casting Earl, but it can help cast Earl.
Turn 1, you could cast Crick, which could be pretty spoopy.
Yeah, that's like, pretty exciting, actually.
You know, like, Crick's pretty messed up, but I don't know. I
think you should probably put it in Crick.
Yeah.
That seems fine. I'm okay with Crick playing this card,
But again, the moment you do that, it's arch enemy, right? You're now playing a 1v3, I think. So I don't know. It's multiplayer formats are so hard to identify in that sort of way.
I mean, I can see it happening fairly often that it's like, okay, I do this, and then someone just kills the commander. It's like, well, okay, there you go. Your Lotus is gone. Now your commander's more expensive, and we can get back to playing a normal game now.
Yeah, Doomblade.
Yeah, and those games plus the games where you just draw it and like you already have way more mana than you need, those games are gonna far outweigh the number of games where you're like, oh sweet, I have the perfect 7 and I can like combo off on turn 1. Those games, the ones where Jeweled Lotus looks really, really good, I think are going to be rare enough that you're just not going to want to put it in every deck.
Yeah, like I was looking at this being like, oh, maybe Sharoom wants to play this. And then thinking about it and realizing, I don't actually think so, right?
Yeah.
Sharoom the Hegemon's 3 colors. There's going to be games where you're sitting on 2 colors and this for a long time feeling awful.
Man, I'm just thinking about playing Crick on turn 1 and having nothing but black pips as your entire deck and just like laying down most of your deck, and then someone being like, all right, I'm at 1, but I've got this gigantic board state. And someone's like, all right, lightning bolt.
Yeah, I guess.
I heard this wasn't a good card in Commander.
Crick, Son of Yawgmoth, just for players who might not be familiar, is from... What was he from, even?
It was last year's Commander, right? Last
right.
2019.
Yeah, but like 2/2, casts for 4 and 3 black for Phyrexian mana, lifelink, and then he has a bunch of abilities. Right. For each...
But it keeps going.
Yeah, he's one of these cards where you just keep reading him and he keeps going. For each black mana pip in a cost, you may pay 2 life rather than pay that mana. And whenever you cast a black spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Crick. Yeah, this feels good out on turn 1, I think.
Yeah, and he has lifelink. We mentioned he's a 2/2 lifelink, right? That makes himself larger and helps cheat more spells in play. Yeah. So for sure, I think the Jeweled Lotus likes Crick.
All right, we're going to leave it there for this week, but we will have plenty more to talk about with Commander Legends next episode and maybe even beyond that. So do join us for that. Reminder that the show is brought to you by cardkingdom.com. Do check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. The show is also brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Zendikar Rising nicknames are still open. If you go to lrr.cc/nicknames, you can throw a couple ideas in there, and definitely tune in for the Commander Legends PPR November 6th at 11 a.m. Pacific time at twitch.tv/loadingreadyrun. I think there might be some amount of daylight savings happening somewhere in the world, so make sure you double check 11 a.m. Pacific time for that. So until next time, thanks to Nelson.
Hey, I know it's hard work, but please go vote if you haven't voted yet.
And Cameron.
You're welcome.
And Ben.
Yo, thanks.
Shoutouts to James for running the card reader, and Jordan for editing these, and Heather does podcast admin. I have been Graham. Goodbye.